In this video, I want to go over how we can implement ifstream and ofstream. There are several important aspects of this code that will help you code in this particular coding challenge. First, when you want to use ifstream or ofstream, the library that you need to include is fstream. Next, what I want to do is I want to go to main. In main, the first thing you'll see is that I have if argc does not equal 3, then I'm going to print to the error output, standard C error, the incorrect number of inputs. So right now, I have command line input.txt and output.txt. So I'm going to run this without those inputs. And what you're going to see is that we're going to get incorrect number of inputs. So now to update it, I'm going to go back to debug and update these values. The other thing I want to show you is what happens if I delete this code here. The production quality compilation rules require that anytime you allocate a variable or memory, you have to use it. That includes int argc and char ** argv. So watch what happens if I delete this code. When I run it, it's not going to compile. It's going to give me a compiler error, and that compiler error is going to say unused parameter argc. That comes from the compiler flag wextra. This ensures efficient use of memory in order to properly structure your data. So to ensure you don't get that compiler error when you're trying to read from the command line, always do a check to make sure that you have the correct number of inputs. Next, we're going to see how to instantiate an input stream. To create an input stream, we have standard ifstream, and the variable name here is readIn. In order to construct an input stream, you need a character array. In this case, argv1 will serve as our input. The crucial thing to bear in mind is that there's no guarantee that the file you are inputting actually exists. So something you're going to need to do in your coding challenge is you need to verify that it exists. Since we're treating the file pointer as an object, there is a class method where we can just call the overloaded operator for not, and it tells us whether or not the file actually exists. Now in this case, right now, there is no input.txt file. So what's going to happen is it's going to compile, but it's going to print out input.txt file does not exist. And we see that's exactly what happens. So how do we fix that? Simply put, I'm going to create an input.txt file. And right now it's empty, which will bring us to the next check you're going to need to do. Here what we're doing is we're going to take the last input and create a file for ofstream, which is the output file. In this particular case, we want to read in a number and then read in all the values from the file. So we're going to read in the number, and in order to do this, first you're going to create an unsigned int file number. Since ifstream is an object, we have an operator that allows us to read in from the input stream and check to see whether or not it's a valid unsigned integer. So what's going on is it's reading in, and it's also returning whether or not it worked properly. So we'll see that standard C error says file requires an initial integer. Right now, input.txt is empty. So when I run this, that's what's going to print out. And that's exactly what happens. And we see that it creates an output.txt file. So I'm going to delete that. And now, just to show that it works, I'm going to say, hello. This is not an unsigned integer. So when I run it, we're going to see that it's going to give us the same error message. And again, if an input.txt, if I say -10, since this is not a positive integer, it's going to give us bad data. we see that -10 is the exact same in 2's complement as 4,294,976,286. So we have to make sure that we're inputting correct values. If I do 10, it's going to say 10 and stop. So now let's keep going. Here we call the function func. So now what I want to do is I want to go up to the function call, and I want to emphasize that when you use ifstream and ofstream, you must call them by reference. So you see up here that my function is called by reference here for ifstream and ofstream. And we saw that the code compiled fine. Now watch what happens when I remove one of those. If I try to pass it by value, it will give me a compiler error. It says use of deleted function standard basic ifstream. And you might want to pull your hair out and go, oh, why is it doing that? I know ifstream, that can't possibly be deleted. Well, what actually happened is ifstream is passed by value. If we were to actually allow it to do that, we would read in a certain number of values, and then when we went back to main, the pointer would go down here in the function, but the value would remain here, so you have the potential to overwrite or reread the same information unintentionally. Therefore, C++ production quality rules require that you have to call standard ifstream and standard ofstream by reference. Now, I have a problem in the coding challenge assignments where I show you a function where it's not called by reference, and I say, well, produce a compiler error Y, and that is why. So now that we have it properly done with call by reference, what we're going to do is we're just going to read in strings, and then we're going to print them out. So in an input.text, I'm just going to say, wake up the echoes. And what it will do is it will read through this file, and then it will print out wake up the echoes to the screen. It's also going to do the same thing to the output file. So what's going to happen is we're going to see 10 and then wake up the echoes. So let's go through and actually run this and see what happens. It's what we expect will happen is that it's going to create an output.txt file. It will print wake up the echo to the terminal, will print 10, then wake up the echoes. To output.txt, it will print wake up the echoes. And then there's one last step I'm going to show you after I run this. So we see that in fact says 10 wake up the echoes, and in the file we only print wake up the echoes here, which is exactly what we told the program to do. The last important thing to do whenever you're doing an input or output is to close the files. In the coding challenge, there will be points that I will tell the TAs to deduct if you do not close the files in that particular portion of the coding challenge. The reason we do this is because ifstream and ofstream are object-oriented versions of file pointers. So what we're doing when we call .close is we're actually freeing the pointer, which allows us to be more efficient with our memory.